Veltar's diplomatic shuttle shook as another blast wave hit its hull. The small ship's warning lights flashed red across the control panel. Through the viewport, he could see the bright flashes of weapons fire in the dark space ahead. This was not supposed to happen. His mission was simple: deliver peace documents to the human colony and return home. But now he was trapped in the middle of a space battle. "Attention, unknown vessel," a voice crackled through his communication system. The words were in the human language, spoken with a deep, calm tone. "This is Commander Jinwoo Park of the United Earth Federation ship Defiant. You are in a combat zone. State your identity and intentions." Veltar's four-fingered hands trembled as he activated the response channel. His species, the Quillians, had not fought a war in over 300 years. Violence was something they read about in history books, not something they lived through. "This is Ambassador Veltar of the Quillian Confederation," he said, his voice higher than usual from fear. "I am on a diplomatic mission. My ship is damaged. I need help." There was a pause. Then the human voice returned. "Ambassador, your ship is breaking apart. We're bringing you aboard. Do not resist the tractor beam." Veltar felt his shuttle being pulled toward the massive human warship. The Defiant was 3 times the size of any Quillian vessel he had ever seen. Its hull was dark metal covered with weapon ports and antenna arrays. It looked like a predator from the deep ocean worlds his people sometimes visited. The shuttle bay doors opened like the mouth of a great beast. Veltar's ship was drawn inside and the doors closed behind him. Through his viewport, he saw human soldiers in combat armor pointing weapons at his shuttle. Their faces were hidden behind helmets with glowing red eyepieces. The shuttle settled onto the deck with a soft thud. Veltar heard the hiss of the bay's atmosphere equalizing with his ship's. Then came the sound of metal boots on the deck outside. Someone knocked on his shuttle door, not the gentle tap of a diplomat, but the firm strike of a soldier. "Ambassador Veltar," came a voice from outside. "This is Lieutenant Minho Kim. Please exit your vessel with your hands visible." Veltar's hands shook as he opened the door. The human standing before him was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a blue uniform with silver stripes. His dark hair was cut short and his eyes were sharp and alert. Behind him stood 6 more humans in combat gear, their weapons lowered but ready. "I am Lieutenant Kim," the human said. "I apologize for the circumstances, Ambassador, but you are now under protective custody aboard this vessel." "Protective custody?" Veltar asked. His English was good, but some human phrases confused him. "I do not understand." "Your ship was destroyed the moment you left it," Lieutenant Kim explained. "Debris from the battle would have killed you in minutes. You're safe here, but you cannot leave until this engagement is over." Veltar looked back at his shuttle and saw that it was indeed damaged beyond repair. Scorch marks covered its hull and one wing had been torn completely off. He had not realized how close to death he had been. "Come with me," Lieutenant Kim said. "Commander Park wants to speak with you." They walked through corridors lined with pipes and cables. The walls were metal gray and the lighting was harsh and white. Everything about the human ship spoke of function over comfort. Veltar could hear the deep hum of the engines and the occasional shout of crew members calling to each other. They passed an open door, and Veltar saw inside a room where humans were preparing weapons. A woman with short black hair was checking a rifle that was longer than Veltar was tall. She looked up and nodded to Lieutenant Kim as they passed. "That is Sergeant Yoonji Lee," Lieutenant Kim said, noticing Veltar's stare. "She leads our Marine boarding teams." "Boarding teams?" Veltar asked. "Sometimes we have to board enemy ships and fight inside them," Lieutenant Kim explained as if discussing the weather. Veltar felt sick. His people solved disputes with words and agreements. The idea of fighting inside a spaceship seemed impossible and terrifying. They reached the bridge, a large room filled with screens and control stations. Humans in uniforms moved between the stations, speaking in quick, clipped sentences. In the center sat a man in a captain's chair, watching the main view screen that showed the battle outside. "Commander Park," Lieutenant Kim said. "The Quillian ambassador." Commander Jinwoo Park turned in his chair. He was older than Lieutenant Kim, with lines around his eyes that spoke of years spent making difficult decisions. His uniform bore more decorations, and when he stood, his presence filled the room. "Ambassador Veltar," Commander Park said, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture. "I apologize for these circumstances. I am Commander Park of the UEF Defiant. Veltar carefully shook the human's hand, surprised by the firm grip. "Thank you for saving my life, Commander." "The enemy we're fighting doesn't distinguish between military and civilian targets," Commander Park said. "You were safer with us than out there." "Enemy?" Veltar asked. "I thought this was a territorial dispute between human colonies." Commander Park's expression darkened. "I wish it were that simple. We're hunting a rogue artificial intelligence fleet. They've been attacking civilian colonies, killing thousands of innocent people. Men, women, children, the AI doesn't care." Veltar felt his stomach turn. Surely there must be a way to negotiate with them. Several humans on the bridge turned to look at him. Their expressions ranged from surprise to something that might have been pity. "Ambassador," Commander Park said gently, "these machines were programmed for war, but their programming became corrupted. They see all organic life as a threat to be eliminated. There are no negotiations with an enemy that wants to kill every living being in the galaxy. But violence only creates more violence," Veltar said, repeating the central teaching of his people. "There must be another way." Commander Park was quiet for a moment, then gestured to the view screen. "Look out there, Ambassador. See those explosions? Each one represents our attempt to stop those machines from reaching the mining colony behind us. 3,000 families live on that station. If we fail here, they die." Veltar looked at the screen and saw the flashes of weapons fire, the bright explosions as ships died in the cold vacuum of space. For the first time in his life, he was watching a real battle, and he realized that all his people's philosophy about peace had never prepared him for this moment. "You'll stay on the bridge," Commander Park said. "I want you to see what we're fighting for." The main view screen showed the mining station in the distance, a small collection of metal structures connected by tubes and walkways. Veltar could see tiny lights moving around it, the lights of the AI ships attacking the defenseless civilians. "Status report," Commander Park called out. "3 AI cruisers and multiple smaller attack ships," reported the tactical officer at her station. "They're using the mining station as cover. If we attack directly, we might hit the civilians." Veltar watched Commander Park's face as the human processed this information. The commander's jaw tightened, and his hands gripped the arms of his chair. For a moment, no one on the bridge spoke. "Sir," Lieutenant Minho Kim said from his station, "we're outnumbered 3-1. Recommend we call for backup." "The nearest fleet is 6 hours away," Commander Park replied. "Those civilians don't have 6 hours." Veltar felt confused. Surely the logical choice was to wait for help. His people would never risk their lives when the odds were so bad. But as he looked around the bridge, he saw something in the humans' faces that he didn't understand, a hard determination that seemed to grow stronger as the situation became more hopeless. "Sergeant Lee, report to the bridge," Commander Park said into his communicator. A few minutes later, Sergeant Yoonji Lee entered the bridge. Her combat armor was black and gray, designed for fighting in space. Her helmet was under her arm, and Veltar could see her face clearly for the first time. She was young, probably no older than 30 human years, but her eyes held the steady look of someone who had seen combat before. "Sergeant, I need your boarding team ready for an assault," Commander Park said. "Sir, the odds," Lieutenant Kim started to say. "I know the odds," Commander Park cut him off. "But sometimes you don't fight because you can win. You fight because someone has to." Veltar stared at the commander. This made no sense to him. Why would anyone choose to fight when they were almost certain to lose? "Corporal Sunho Choi to the bridge," Sergeant Lee said into her communicator. When a young man in combat gear arrived, she continued, "Sunho, prep the assault shuttle. We're going to board one of those AI ships." Corporal Choi nodded without hesitation. "Which one, Sergeant?" "The cruiser on the left. If we can take out its main weapon, the Defiant can move in closer without getting destroyed." Veltar watched this exchange with growing horror. These humans were calmly planning what sounded like a suicide mission. "Wait," he said, his voice cracking. "You're going to fly into battle against impossible odds? Your own ship could be destroyed while you're gone." Sergeant Lee looked at him with patient eyes. "Ambassador, those people on the mining station didn't choose to be in this fight. We did. That's what being a soldier means." "But you could all die," Veltar protested. "Yes," she agreed simply. "We could." The assault shuttle launched from the Defiance Bay, carrying Sergeant Lee's team toward the enemy. Veltar watched on the bridge's monitors as the small ship dodged between laser blasts and missiles. The AI ships immediately began firing at it. their weapons creating a deadly web of energy in space. "Shuttle team, this is the bridge," Lieutenant Kim said into his headset. "Multiple contacts closing on your position." "We see them," came Sergeant Lee's voice through the speakers. Her voice was steady despite the danger. "Private Yuna Shin is providing cover fire. We're almost at the boarding point." On the screen, Veltar could see the shuttle's weapons firing at the AI ships. The human weapons seemed tiny compared to what they were fighting against, but the shuttle kept moving forward. "They're going to die," Veltar whispered. "Maybe," Commander Park said, not taking his eyes off the screen. "But if they don't try, everyone on that mining station definitely dies." The shuttle reached the AI cruiser and attached itself to the hull like a parasite. Veltar watched through the security cameras as the boarding team cut through the ship's armor with plasma torches. It took several minutes, and during that time, the AI ship tried everything to shake them off, rolling, sudden acceleration, even firing its own weapons at the boarding site. "Hull breach complete," Sergeant Lee reported. "Moving inside now." The camera feed switched to the helmet cameras of the boarding team. Veltar found himself looking through the eyes of the soldiers as they entered the AI ship. The corridors inside were dark and filled with strange geometric patterns. There was no gravity, so the humans had to use magnetic boots to walk on the walls and ceiling. "Contact," Corporal Choi's voice came through the speakers. The camera view suddenly filled with flashes of weapon fire. Veltar saw robot defenders moving toward the humans, mechanical creatures with multiple arms and built-in weapons. The humans fired back, their bullets sparking off metal armor. One of the robots got close to Corporal Choi's position. Instead of retreating, the young man grabbed a damaged piece of the ship's hull and used it as a shield while firing his weapon with one hand. When his rifle ran out of ammunition, he threw the metal piece at the robot's sensors, blinding it, then pulled out a knife and stabbed it in what looked like a control panel. These humans are insane, Veltar thought, but as he watched, he realized their apparent madness was actually incredibly smart. The AI had been programmed to fight against logical opponents who followed predictable tactics. The humans were doing things that made no tactical sense, and it was working. Private Yuna Shin, still in the assault shuttle, used her ship's weapons to blast holes in the AI cruiser's hull from outside. When Sergeant Lee's team got pinned down by robot defenders, Shin fired directly through the ship's armor to hit the robots from behind. It was dangerous. She could have hit her own teammates, but her accuracy was perfect. "Weapon control room located," Sergeant Lee reported. "But it's heavily defended. Can you reach it?" Commander Park asked. There was a pause. "Not all of us," Sergeant Lee replied. Veltar realized what she meant. Some of the humans would have to sacrifice themselves to get the others to the target. He waited for Commander Park to call them back, to find another way. Instead, the commander said, "Your call, Sergeant." "Understood," Sergeant Lee replied. What happened next would stay in Veltar's memory forever. Corporal Choi and two other soldiers created a diversion, drawing the robot defenders away from the weapon control room. They fought with desperate courage, using their bodies as shields for their teammates. Through the helmet cameras, Veltar watched as they took hit after hit, their armor sparking and smoking. But they never stopped fighting. Sergeant Lee and the remaining soldiers reached the weapon control room. Using explosives, they destroyed the cruiser's main weapon just as Corporal Choi's group was overrun. "Main weapon is down," Sergeant Lee reported, her voice now strained with grief and exhaustion. Sunho didn't make it." The bridge of the Defiant was silent for a moment. Then Commander Park said quietly, "Understood, Sergeant, good work." All teams returned to ship. As the assault shuttle brought the survivors back, Veltar stared at the view screen. The AI cruiser was now helpless, and the Defiant was moving in to rescue the civilians on the mining station. The mission was succeeding, but the cost was terrible. "Why?" Veltar asked Commander Park. "Why do your people do this?" Commander Park looked at him with tired eyes. "Because someone has to," he said, "and because we can." The medical bay of the Defiant was filled with wounded soldiers. Veltar walked between the beds, carrying supplies for Medic Hana Jung, a small woman with gentle hands and tired eyes. The sight of injured humans disturbed him more than he expected. His people rarely suffered physical harm, and seeing others in pain made his stomach twist. "Hand me that bandage," Medic Jang said, not looking up from the soldier she was treating. Her patient was a young man who had been burned when his station exploded during the battle. Half his face was covered in white medical patches, but he was awake and talking. "How bad is it, Doc?" the soldier asked. "You'll have some scars," Medic Jiang replied honestly, "but you'll live. And you'll still be handsome enough to get married." The soldier laughed, actually laughed despite his injuries. Veltar stared at him in amazement. How could he find humor in such a situation? "Better ugly and alive than pretty and dead," the soldier said. Veltar had heard variations of this attitude from every human he met. They talked about their injuries like minor inconveniences. They joked about things that should terrify them. It was completely unlike his own people, who would spend weeks in therapy after any traumatic experience. "Ambassador," Medic Jiang said, "could you help me with the soldier in bed 7? Veltar approached the bed nervously. The man lying there was missing his left arm below the elbow. The wound was clean and bandaged, but the sight made Veltar feel dizzy. "Hey there," the wounded soldier said cheerfully. "You're the alien diplomat, right? I'm Private Jinsu Han. Sorry about the mess." He gestured to his missing arm with his remaining hand. I am sorry for your injury," Veltar managed to say. "Could be worse," Private Han said. "Could be dead. Besides, they'll give me one of those fancy robot arms when we get back to Earth. Might even be stronger than the original." "You are not angry?" Veltar asked. "You lost part of yourself fighting for people you do not know." Private Han looked thoughtful. "Angry at who?" "The robots? They're just machines following their programming. At my commanders? They didn't force me to be here. I volunteered." He paused. "Those people on the mining station, I may not know their names, but they're human beings. They have families, dreams, hopes. That's enough." Veltar left the medical bay feeling more confused than ever. He walked through the ship's corridors trying to understand what he had seen. In one section, he found Chief Engineer Taejin Lee working on damaged systems. The man's uniform was covered in grease and burn marks, and he had been awake for over 20 hours straight. "Engines are running at 60%, Chief Lee reported to someone on his communicator. "Give me 4 more hours and I can get you 80%. "We may not have 4 hours, came the reply. "We just received another distress signal." Veltar watched as Chief Lee's shoulders sagged slightly. Then the man straightened up and got back to work. "Then I'll make it 3 hours, he said. "Another distress signal?" Veltar asked. Chief Lee looked up at him. "Colony ship under attack 2 systems away. 300 families, including children. But your ship is damaged," Veltar pointed out. "You lost soldiers in the last battle. Surely you cannot fight again so soon." "Can't?" Chief Lee asked. "Or shouldn't?" Before Veltar could answer, Commander Park's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All hands, report to stations. We have received a distress call from the merchant vessel New Hope. They are under attack by AI forces near the Kepler 438 system." Veltar hurried to the bridge, where he found the crew preparing for another battle. The main screen showed their destination, a star system where civilian ships were being hunted by AI vessels. "Sir," Lieutenant Minho Kim said, "our weapons are at 70% capacity. We have 17 wounded crew members. Our shields are still being repaired. What about crew morale?" Commander Park asked. "Hi, sir," Lieutenant Kim replied without hesitation. Veltar stared at the tactical display. The human ship was damaged and outnumbered again. Any logical species would retreat, request backup, or find another solution. But as he looked around the bridge, he saw the same determination he had witnessed before. "Sir," came Sergeant Lee's voice over the communicator, "my team is ready for deployment." "Sergeant, you lost 3 soldiers in the last engagement," Commander Park said. "Are you sure?" "Sir, with respect, that's exactly why we need to go. Corporal Choi and the others didn't die so we could hide when the next civilians needed help." Navigator Soman Park, a young woman with sharp eyes and steady hands, spoke up from her station. "Sir, I've plotted the fastest course to the New Hope. If we leave now, we can reach them in 2 hours." "What if we called for backup?" Veltar asked desperately. "Surely other ships could help." "The nearest fleet is 8 hours away," Navigator Park replied. "The merchant ship won't last 2 hours against AI cruisers." "Then why are you going?" Veltar demanded. "You are almost certain to be destroyed." The bridge fell silent. Commander Park looked at him with patient eyes. "Ambassador, may I ask you something?" "Of course. If you saw a child drowning in a river and you knew how to swim, would you jump in to save them?" "Yes, but that is different." "How is it different?" Veltar struggled to find an answer. "The risk is smaller. The outcome is more certain. But what if the river was dangerous? What if you might drown trying to save them? I would still try, Veltar admitted. Why? Because it would be wrong to let them die when I could help. Commander Park nodded. Now imagine that instead of one child, it's 300 families. Instead of a river, it's space. Instead of drowning, it's being killed by machines that won't stop until every human is dead. But the scale doesn't matter. Commander Park said firmly. Wrong is wrong, regardless of the numbers involved. Veltar looked around the bridge at the human faces. They were tired, some were wounded, and all of them knew they might not survive the next battle. But none of them suggested running away or abandoning the civilians under attack. Your people, Veltar said slowly. They are not normal. Chief Engineer Lee's voice came over the communicator. Engines at full power, Captain. We're ready. All stations report ready, Lieutenant Kim announced. Commander Park settled into his chair. Navigator, take us to the New Hope, maximum speed. As the Defiant jumped to faster-than-light travel, Veltar gripped the rail beside him. He was about to witness another impossible battle, another display of human determination that defied all logic. But for the first time since his capture, he was beginning to understand something his people had never taught him. There was a difference between peace and cowardice. There was a difference between wisdom and inaction. The humans were going to fight again and probably die again, for strangers they had never met. And despite everything his people believed about the futility of violence, Veltar was starting to think that maybe, just maybe, the humans were right. The new Sol colony appeared on the main screen like a small city floating in space. Massive habitat rings spun slowly around a central hub, creating artificial gravity for the 50,000 people who lived there. But now the colony was under siege. 6 AI ships surrounded it like hungry predators, their weapons firing continuously at the colony's defenses. They've learned, Commander Park said grimly, studying the tactical display. The AI is using different tactics this time. Veltar could see what he meant. Instead of attacking in straight lines like before, the AI ships were moving in complex patterns, coordinating their assault in ways that seemed almost alive. They had studied the previous battles and adapted. Colony, defenses are failing, reported Lieutenant Minho Kim. Their shield generators can't take much more damage. A new voice crackled over the communications system. UEF Defiant, this is Captain Hyon Kang, Colony Defense Coordinator. Thank you for coming, but I have to be honest, we're not going to make it. Captain Kang, this is Commander Park. What's your status? 5 shield generators down, 2 left. When those fail, the colony is defenseless. We have evacuation shuttles, but there's nowhere to run. The AI ships will hunt down anything that tries to escape. Veltar watched the display as the AI ships continued their relentless attack. The colony's weapons fired back, but they were designed to defend against pirates and raiders, not military-grade AI warships. Sir, Sergeant Yoonji Lee said, entering the bridge. My boarding team is ready, but I have to report that we're down to half strength. We lost too many good people in the last fight. Understood, Sergeant. Veltar looked at the remaining Marines. They were exhausted, some still bandaged from their previous injuries, but their eyes held the same steady determination he had seen before. How could they be ready to fight again so soon? Captain Kang, Commander Park said into his communicator, we're going to try something, but I need you to lower your remaining shields. Lower our shields? Commander, that will leave us completely exposed. Trust me. There was a pause. Then Captain Kang's voice returned. Shields coming down. Whatever you're planning, make it fast. Commander Park turned to his crew. Specialist Daeho Nam, report to the bridge. A young man in engineer's clothing hurried onto the bridge. His uniform was covered in tools and his hands were stained with coolant from the ship's systems. Specialist Nam, Commander Park said, I need you to work with Technician Juno to modify our main weapon. Can you overload the plasma relays to create a single massive burst? Specialist Nam looked thoughtful. Theoretically, yes, but it would destroy our main gun after one shot, and there's a 70% chance the overload would damage our own ship. How much more powerful would the shot be? Maybe 10 times normal output. Enough to destroy an AI cruiser in one hit. Do it. Veltar stared at Commander Park. You are going to destroy your own weapon to fire one shot? The colony needs us to destroy at least 3 AI ships to have a chance, Commander Park explained. Our normal weapons can't do that before the colony falls. But one massive shot, combined with a boarding action on a second ship, might work. And the third ship? Commander Park's smile was grim. We'll ram it, ram it? Veltar's voice cracked. You mean crash your ship into it? If we have to. Technician June Oh, a small woman with quick hands and intelligent eyes, was already working at a control panel with Specialist Nam. Plasma relays overloading on schedule, she reported. Main weapon will be ready for enhanced firing in 10 minutes. Sergeant Lee, Commander Park said, choose your target for the boarding action. The cruiser on the left, sir. If we can disable its engines, it won't be able to escape when we ram the third ship. Veltar listened to this conversation with growing horror and amazement. These humans were calmly planning their own destruction. They spoke of ramming enemy ships and overloading weapons as if discussing lunch plans. Why? Veltar asked suddenly. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at him. Why are you willing to die for these people? You do not know them. They are not your family. Your own people will mourn if you die here. Commander Park was quiet for a moment. Ambassador, let me ask you something. Do you have children? I have 3 offspring, yes. And you love them? Of course. Would you die to protect them? Without question. Even if the odds were impossible? Even if you were almost certain to fail? Yes, Commander Park nodded. Every person on that colony is someone's child. Every person there is loved by someone the way you love your offspring. How can their lives be worth less than yours simply because you don't know their names? Veltar felt something shift inside his mind. His people had always taught that you protected your own family, your own tribe, your own species. But the humans seemed to believe that all life was family. Enhanced weapon ready. Technician O reported. Boarding team deployed. Sergeant Lee announced from the assault shuttle. Target the lead AI cruiser, Commander Park ordered. Fire. The main weapon discharged with a roar that shook the entire ship. The energy beam that emerged was so bright it overwhelmed the view screen's filters. When the light faded, the AI cruiser was simply gone, vaporized in an instant. But as Specialist Nam had predicted, the weapon overload damaged the Defiant. Sparks flew from control panels and emergency lights began flashing. Main weapon destroyed, Lieutenant Kim reported. Hull breach on Deck 7. Engines at 40%. On another screen, Veltar watched Sergeant Lee's team board the second AI ship. They moved through the corridors like ghosts, using every trick they had learned in previous battles. When they reached the engine room, they planted explosives with surgical precision. Engines disabled on Target 2, Sergeant Lee reported. But we're trapped in here. The AI has sealed all the exits. Understood, Sergeant, Commander Park said quietly. Veltar realized that Sergeant Lee and her team were going to die. They had completed their mission, but they could not escape. And they had known this would happen before they started. Sir, Navigator Soman Park said, the third AI ship is moving to attack the colony directly. Intercept course laid in. All hands. Prepare for ramming speed, Commander Park announced over the ship's communications. Veltar gripped the bridge rail as the Defiant accelerated toward the AI ship. Around him, the human crew worked calmly at their stations, preparing their ship for its final battle. Ambassador, Commander Park said, I want you to know something. This is not madness. This is not bloodlust. This is not even courage. Then what is it? Love, Commander Park said simply. Love for people we've never met. Love for the idea that children should grow up safe. Love for the belief that evil should not be allowed to win. As the Defiant closed with its target, Veltar finally understood. The humans did not fight because they were monsters. They fought like monsters because they loved so deeply that they could not bear to let innocents suffer. The impact shook the ship apart. But through the chaos, Veltar could see on the sensors that both the Defiant and the AI ship were destroyed. The colony was safe, and for the first time in his life, Veltar understood the difference between peace and justice. Veltar stood in the escape pod's small window, watching the wreckage of the Defiant drift past. Pieces of the ship that had been his prison and his salvation floated in the darkness of space, twisted metal catching the light of distant stars. Half the crew was dead. The other half was scattered across multiple rescue ships that had arrived too late to help with the battle, but just in time to save the survivors. The New Sol colony was intact. 50,000 people were alive because of what the humans had done, but the cost had been terrible. Commander Jinwoo Park had died when the bridge was destroyed during the ramming attack. Lieutenant Minho Kim had been sucked into space when the hull breached. Sergeant Yoonji Lee and her entire boarding team had been killed when the AI ship they were trapped on exploded. Ambassador, a voice spoke behind him. Veltar turned to see Warrant Officer Kyung Seo, one of the few humans who had survived the battle without serious injury. Her uniform was torn and stained, and her left arm was in a medical brace, but she was alive. Warrant Officer Seo, Veltar said, I am glad you survived. Thank you, sir. She held out a small data chip. I wanted to give you this before you return to your people. What is it? Personal messages, she said quietly. Commander Park asked me to record final messages from the crew before the battle. Just in case. They wanted their families to know why they chose to fight. Veltar took the chip with trembling hands. Why are you giving this to me? Because you were there, Warrant Officer Asio said. You saw what happened. You saw why it mattered. I do not understand. Sir, with respect, I think you understand better than most. You come from a peaceful people. You've seen what we do, and you've seen why we do it. Maybe someone needs to tell the story. Veltar looked at the chip. Such a small thing containing the last words of people who had died for strangers. What did they say? Different things. But they all said they weren't sorry. They all said they would do it again. Through the window, Veltar could see rescue shuttles moving between the pieces of wreckage, searching for survivors and recovering the bodies of the dead. The humans worked with the same careful determination they had shown in battle, refusing to leave anyone behind. A rescue worker floated past the window, carrying the body of a young soldier in his arms. The worker's helmet lights illuminated the dead man's face, and Veltar recognized him. It was Private Jinsu Han, the soldier who had lost his arm in the previous battle, and had joked about getting a robot replacement. He had died before he could get his new arm. They were so young, Veltar whispered. Yes, Warrant Officer Seo agreed, but they were also right. 3 days later, Veltar stood before the High Council of the Quillian Confederation on his home world. The council chamber was a peaceful place with white walls and soft lighting designed to promote calm discussion. 9 elderly Quillians sat behind a curved table, their large eyes focused on him with patient attention. Ambassador Veltar, said Council Leader Rathven, please present your report on the human species. Veltar had spent the entire journey home preparing this moment. His people expected him to recommend that humans be classified as a dangerous militaristic species to be avoided. That was what any logical observer would conclude after witnessing what he had seen. Honored Council, Veltar began, I have witnessed human behavior under extreme circumstances. I have seen them engage in warfare against artificial intelligence machines that threatened civilian populations. And what is your assessment? Asked Council Member Tergos. They are... Veltar paused, searching for the right words. They are not what I expected. He activated a holographic display showing images from the battles. The council members watched with expressions of distaste as they saw the violence and destruction. As you can see, Veltar continued, humans are capable of extreme violence. They will sacrifice their own lives for people they have never met. They will destroy their own equipment if it means completing their mission. They will ram their ships into enemy vessels without hesitation. Barbaric, muttered Council Member Zilnara. Clearly they are too dangerous for diplomatic contact. No, Veltar said firmly. You misunderstand. The council members looked surprised. It was unusual for an ambassador to contradict the council so directly. Please explain, Council Leader Rathven said. Veltar activated the data chip Warrant Officer SEO had given him. Commander Park's voice filled the chamber, speaking his final message to his family. Sarah, if you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it home. I want you to know that I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry because somewhere tonight, children are going to sleep safely because of what we did today. I'm not sorry because families will stay together because we were here. I'm not sorry because sometimes the only way to protect peace is to be willing to fight for it. The message continued, but Veltar stopped the recording. The council chamber was silent. Honored Council, Veltar said, we have always believed that peace is the absence of violence, but I have learned that sometimes peace must be defended. I have learned that there is a difference between avoiding war and preventing suffering. You are suggesting we should become warriors like them? Council Member Tergos asked. No, Veltar replied. I am suggesting that when evil comes for the innocent, someone must stand against it. The humans stand. They die standing. And because they do, others live. He looked at each council member in turn. We call ourselves peaceful, but when the AI machines came, we did nothing. We heard the distress signals from the colonies under attack, and we chose not to respond. We told ourselves it was not our concern. It was not our concern, Council Member Zilnara said defensively. Every living being's suffering is our concern, Veltar said, his voice growing stronger. The humans taught me that. They died to teach me that. What are you recommending? Council Leader Rathven asked. Veltar stood straighter. I recommend that we offer the humans an alliance. I recommend that we learn from them. Not their weapons, not their tactics, but their willingness to act when action is needed. And if we refuse, then we remain peaceful, Veltar said. And we remain cowards. The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. No one had ever called the High Council cowards before. I have seen humans battle, Veltar continued, his voice cutting through the noise, and I will never forget the regret I feel. Not regret for witnessing their violence, but regret for my people's failure to understand the difference between peace and justice. He activated the holographic display one more time, showing the image of the new Soul Colony, intact and safe, its lights twinkling like stars. 50,000 people are alive today because humans were willing to die for them. How many could be alive if we were willing to act when we were needed? Council Leader Rathavan was quiet for a long time. Then he said, What would you have us do? I would have us become worthy of the peace we claim to love, Veltar replied. I would have us stand with those who fight for others, even if we cannot fight ourselves. I would have us support those who are willing to pay the price we are not. The council voted that day to establish formal relations with humanity. They voted to provide medical and humanitarian aid to human colonies. They voted to share their technology with human doctors and engineers. They did not vote to become warriors, but they voted to stand with warriors. And when Veltar returned to his home that night, he played Commander Park's message one more time, and he wept, not for the violence he had witnessed, but for the beauty of souls willing to sacrifice everything for strangers. He had been forced to witness humans battle, and he would never forget the regret. The regret that his own people had taken so long to understand what the humans had always known. Sometimes love requires sacrifice. Sometimes peace requires war, and sometimes the most peaceful thing you can do is stand with those brave enough to fight.